Hey traders, Michael or 𝐼𝐴 here. You're here for another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis. Today is Turnaround Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. You're looking at a daily chart of the SPY or spiders, which is the proxy for the S&P 500. What do we have on the docket today? Well, today we're going to talk about the S&P as usual. We got some interesting stuff to talk about. Within Mrs. Market, we completed some important levels in the intraday activity today, so we'll go over that. And then also, in last night's video, I told you guys to give me a list of some stocks or just any type of markets that you want me to look at. I pulled a random one out of a hat. For future reference, I'm just going to do the one that receives the most amount of likes or comments so that I don't have to pick one out of a hat every single time. So we'll cover that shortly. That's something to look forward to. And then also I want to cover a little bit about some interesting things that are happening within society. For example, all eyes are glued on this government shutdown shenanigans. It's the same thing as the tariff schmariff shenanigans. One day they say they're going to shut down the government, the next day they say they're not, and then they go back and forth, there's a deadline, there's an extension of a deadline. Whatever it is, it's all shenanigans. It's all noise that the media wants you to hear, to distract you from bigger things that are going on. What are some of those bigger things, you may ask? Well, we just had hundreds of generals and admirals and high-ranking officials from all over the world meet at the Marine Corps base in Quantico. A lot of people are referring to this straight out of a war movie. Okay, this doesn't just happen like that. Apparently there was no preparation. Some of these people didn't even know why they were being summoned. Whether that's true or not, it's still a little bit strange. And here's the thing. They've been saying that the military has been pretty much lowering its standard. Right here you can see the defense secretary said that he's rolling out 10 new directives involving physical fitness, new grooming requirements, going back to the highest male standard. Apparently we got fat generals, and he calls it a bad look. I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing about this. I thought our standard was fine. They do their job, they protect us, they protect America. So this is all new news to people. So we need to fix the standard of our military, yet we have people like this who are in charge of our health and well-being running around in the government. I don't know if she's still working there. Trump probably fired her, but you get the point. My point is that this is just what they want you to hear. Okay, there's obviously a bigger picture that's going on that we don't really know, and we're not going to know. They just tell us what we want to hear. When was the last time something like this happened? It's probably been quite a while. These things don't just happen unless there's something very serious going on within the country. Maybe they really do want to work on these fat officers that are running around. Maybe we truly do want to fix some of these things. But honestly, I find it hard to believe that's the only thing. Another food for thought. Here's an article that says U.S. National Counterterrorism Center warns of threat from Al-Qaeda. There has been multiple sources, and you could do your own research, that Al-Qaeda has invaded the United States and are planning some pretty devious things. We all know that Al-Qaeda doesn't beat around the bush with their motives. Okay, these are extremists, these are bad people, and they've now entered our country. And I'm not showing you this to scare you or spark controversy. If anything, I just want you guys to be aware of the situation because I care about you guys. And this fits into my point that everything you hear on the news about BS things that they talk about over and over and over again, such as how they're having a government shutdown, it's all noise in your ear to distract you from bigger things that are happening, that are going on. Food for thought. Maybe the whole meeting in Quantico was because of this. And they give you a false narrative because they don't want to scare you. Whatever it is, we don't know the true story. We're never going to know. But what we can do is not get caught up in all of this BS that distracts us from other stuff, other big things. Do you notice how the day of the Charlie Kirk assassination, 3 hours after that whole spiel happened, they blocked the Epstein files from being released? Okay, perfect example of how they distract you from other things that are happening. They only want to tell you what you want to hear. So let's get into some business now. Starting with the spiders, we're on a daily chart. As you can see today, we're up $2.50 or 0.38%, and we're a stone's throw away from reaching the previous all-time high. We could draw a line at the high. The exact high is 667.34. Today we made a high, get this, of 666.65. We were 1 penny off from a quintuple 6 number. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but 5 6 numbers in a row. We'll give that a funny how that works. I'm telling you, these numbers, more so the 3s, the 6, and the 9s, they're magnetic, they're important, they're psychological, they mess with our heads. That's devil numbers right there. If you recall from yesterday, I said that that area is going to be resistance for the market. Around the 666.33, 0.66, 0.99. If we go to a 5-minute chart and just put a line right here at the high, right at one of the numbers that I said could be overhead resistance, and she bounced right off of it. Now, I'm not saying this was a trading opportunity, especially coming into it in the last 5 minutes of the day, but it just goes to show that these numbers are indeed important. Now, looking at this in a longer term perspective, and we'll go over the shorter term perspective once we go over to inside the numbers, and trust me, you're going to want to stay for that because I'm going to go over some interesting stuff, some important stuff. But the longer term picture is pretty bullish right now. Obviously, we're above all the moving averages, so the trend is your friend. Here's the medium/longer term pivot number at 660. That is an important number, and we're managing to close candles above it. 3 candles above to be exact. But we did stop short of reaching the all-time high. And now we're transitioning into a new month, the month of October. October is a spooky month. We got Halloween. So although we are in a pretty bullish situation, staying above the pivot, staying above all the moving averages, we're close to taking out the highs, but some spooky things can happen in the month of October. Okay, the market is coming back into some pretty uncertain territory. We're coming back right towards the 666 number. A lot of people are thinking that might be the top. It might not. We need a little bit more information to work with. You know, this could be just a simple spike the high and rip it right back down in the other direction. That certainly can be a possibility. And maybe we're just not ready to continue going up. And maybe this 666 number is the top. I'm not saying it is, but it is a possibility. We need more puzzle pieces on the board to put together the bigger picture. I do have some numbers in uncharted territory above the highs that Inside the Numbers and live room members will have. I've worked out the mathematics for it. But to conclude, staying above the pivot at 660 is extremely important. But that doesn't mean that it's totally out of the picture. Okay, markets love to come back and retest those pivot areas. So don't be surprised later on this week, maybe tomorrow, maybe even next week, we'll see another test of the pivot. And that'll give us some more information of where we currently stand in the longer term scheme of things. Alright, so as promised, I'm going over one of the stocks that you guys wanted me to look at. Today we're going to look at Oracle. This was randomly selected, but next time, leave a comment or a like of the stock that you want me to review. And we'll try to do one of those every few videos or so. We'll see how that goes. But for now, let's take a look at Oracle. Let's take a look at the larger picture perspective first. And as you can see, we're in a pretty decent uptrend. We're above all the moving averages on a weekly time frame. As you guys know, the trend is your friend. Let's go back over to the daily chart and see what we're working with. So Oracle had a pretty big jump up right here. Not sure what this was, probably earnings or something, but that was a tail candle with volume, a sign and or signal of a trend change. So from this high, we had to move down, made a low of 291.75. We'll put a line there, and I'll explain why in a moment. Found some support at this area, had a little bit of a retracement back up towards this tail candle. Funny enough, found resistance right at this breakdown candle high, near or at the vicinity of the high. But take a look at this. When we had this tail candle, the following day we had a move down. The next day, which was Friday, we had another move down. Found support right here. That's where we drew the line. And what that is, or what it becomes, is the entrance to no man's land. Don't pay attention to this right here. Pretend that doesn't exist for now. But there's a lot of space between the entrance to no man's land and this gap down below. It's about $60. So this low right here formed the entrance to no man's land. And as we know, the entrance to no man's land is generally a bull-bear battle. As you can see from this low right here, we had to move up. we went right back down to retest the entrance to no man's land. The low right here was 292 against 291.75, and the bulls won the bull-bear battle at that specific time. And then we had another move up, found resistance at this breakdown candle high, and then take a look at where we are right now, hovering over the 20-period moving average that is home base, but we are now closing candles below the entrance to no man's land. And honestly, just from the look at this, when we came back down right here, we already knew that that was a first time, best time situation. The first time was right here. That was the best time. The first time, best time rule. Okay, it's not the same trade the second time around. And now, as you can see, we're closing candles below, and we finally made it to the 20-period moving average, home base. And we're starting to close candles below home base. So I do think we have some more downside potential in Oracle. The first obvious destination is going to be the 50-period moving average. And then obviously you have this gap down here. The gap is at 241.51, but I do have some areas where Oracle could bounce the tape before getting all the way down towards this gap right here. So I did put some numbers on the board for your benefit. I worked out the mathematics, and now let's see why these numbers make sense. So 257.17 is the first number. Now, it's coinciding right around the 50-period moving average. Also, you have these breakdown candle highs right here. A big one right here, and another right here, and also it's in the vicinity of the most recent breakout area right here at this high. If we remove that, and we could draw a horizontal line right at the high, it's at 260.87. That's right above the 50-period moving average. I like a spike of it down to 257.17. That's my number that I chose. And also, I just got to throw this out there just for legal purposes. I know you guys already know, but this isn't specific trading advice. I'm not telling you to take this trade. Whatever you do on your own account, your own time, your own trades is totally up to you. I'm just providing the education and the numbers. So if you do decide to do anything with Oracle or any of the other markets that we're talking about, that's totally on you. Just a little disclaimer that I have to go over. You know how it is. The second number is at 249.25. This also coincides with this breakdown candle high. And then the last number is a spike of the gap down at 237.61. Taking a look at a weekly chart, this number, the 237.61, is right around the vicinity of this giant breakup candle low. So that's what I got for Oracle. Keep that on the radar. I'll keep these numbers on the board. Maybe we'll go back to it if we get close. Alright, so now we're going to transition into the shorter term perspective of the S&P, starting with inside the numbers with the 0 dark 30 stuff. This is the morning game plan before the market even opens. Well before the market even opens. So we had our morning pivot as usual. That number was the same pivot as yesterday at 662.55. Here are some of the other numbers you need to know. We have the first overhead resistance zone at 663.55 to 664.50. If we close candles below the pivot, that will open the door towards the unfinished business that we talked about last night at 661.75. And just at a glance, you can see that these numbers were indeed important. We have them all labeled out. The morning pivot is in green. You got resistance number 1, number 2, and then you have the unfinished business down below. So we opened slightly above the pivot. We weren't necessarily looking to trade this. This was more of a trader's choice. We had traders waiting for the first overhead resistance number or even the unfinished business down below. And as you could see, after toying around with the pivot for some time in the morning, we ran them up right to the first overhead resistance number at 663.55. And as you could see, that was pretty much on the frickin' dot. How you doing? Where was the target towards the downside? Where was a necessary place to take some profit? Well, how about right back towards the pivot? You can see throughout all of the morning, the pivot was indeed an important number. We were playing ping pong with the pivot for a majority of the morning. So then around 10:30 comes, we had this big move down, and price went right down to complete the unfinished business at 661.75. That was an important number that we were talking about yesterday. Okay, we missed it right here. This is yesterday's activity. We came up a little bit short. So technically that does constitute as a first time best time situation, but it just so happens that the market found support right at the number. Came right back up, back towards the pivot, even got past the pivot and went to the first overhead resistance number right here. And then played more ping pong, went back down to the unfinished business and then went right back up. Found resistance at the pivot, came back down, back up. We can see that that first initial overhead resistance number was resistance for a majority of the day. Once, twice, 3 times, until we finally broke over it, closed candles above it. As you can see, we're closing candles above right here. And then we pretty much just ran them up for the rest of the day. Here was resistance number 2. Did find some resistance, not enough to give you a trade. Remember, this is in the afternoon. The afternoon is a completely different tape compared to the morning tape. It's a torture tape. That's why we call it a morning business. So looking at this in a shorter term perspective, we did complete the unfinished business. Okay, that was a target that the market wanted to head to complete. It's now considered finished business. And yes, that is a technical term. And now we're all the way up towards the 666 number. So if we didn't complete the unfinished business and we just ran them up towards the 666 number, I would say that it is a possibility that we can come right back down to complete it. But they did complete it pretty early, within 1 day. So now this is where the pivots are so important. Staying above the longer term pivots and the shorter term pivots. We use these pivots as inflection points to figure out the most likely place that Mrs. Market wants to head to. And it's not only just with the S&P. We could have pivots for pretty much anything. We probably could have had a pivot for Oracle. But staying above the longer term pivot and the pivot that traders will have ready for tomorrow's session and inside the numbers and live room, that pivot is going to be important. So we'll have the setup ready. What about stocks on the move? Remember, we have an opportunity around the corner for everybody. We had traders trading 𝐞𝐥𝐜𝐿O, OKLO. That was one of the 2 stocks that hit its entry target. We had one entry for this one at 110.50 with a stop at 108.54. Hourly close below 108.54. So here's 𝐞𝐥𝐜 right at the vertical line as today's activity. And as you can see, we have entry number 1 and we have the stop. We never made it to the stop. We spiked through the first entry by just a bit, played some back and forth right here, but then we eventually got back over it and had a nice rocket ride. Made a high of 116.86. We had traders trading 𝐞𝐥𝐜 and making money, of course. You can pause the video, read the notes, and go back to the chart to double check the work. It's everything that you need to be a successful trader. Whether you're trading the S&P, the stocks that we have. If we scroll down, you could see the list of 13 different markets with support and resistance numbers. I urge you to put some of these numbers on the charts and see how the numbers performed. You'd be surprised on how well the numbers work. Actually, it's not that surprising because we all know that the numbers work. Alright, let's take a quick trip around the world and take a look at some of the other markets, starting with my number 1 favorite market leading indicator, CAMP IWM. And what did I say yesterday? I said that IWM could go back to do some normal garden variety stuff, which is exactly what it did. We went right back to the 20 period moving average. That 20 period moving average happened to coincide with this breakup candle low. So you had 2 things going for you, home base and the breakup candle low. We went over that yesterday. So she found support at this area, and take note of this overhead resistance zone on the board from 244.30 to 247.18. That's the absolute high of this candle right here. And then this is from this breakdown candle high. That is going to be some initial overhead resistance for CAMP IWM. I'm going to throw a pretty important number. It's a pivot number for CAMP IWM. And if we stay above, then we have the potential to test this overhead resistance zone. And if we get below, then we might want to do a little bit more than just heading towards the 20 period moving average. That pivot number is in green at 240.80. It's an important number. The market stopped right here for a reason, found overhead resistance at this area. If we go back a little, we can see that it coincides with this group of breakdown candles, the high of these breakdown candles. So staying above that is the bull case, and staying below, she's bearish and might want to break below the 20-period moving average or further. Here we are in the transportation department, and no shocker, we're still toying around with the pivot. But take note is that we're still closing candles above. It's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles that we've closed above. And as we know, 7 is an important number. Right now, we're above some of the moving averages. We closed right on the 50-period moving average. Today, she had a little bit of a spike down, but in the end, and remember, it's about how you close them. That's the most important thing. So towards the end of the day, she closed them pretty well. We had a spike down below the pivot and then finished strong. So really, all she's been doing within this area right here is eating time off the clock, trading within this triangle. And sooner or later, she's going to have built up enough energy to make a move, whether she wants to bust through towards the upside or whether she wants to crap back down towards the downside. And that would therefore put us in a downtrend as we would be below all of the moving averages. But there is some important support in this area right here. You got the upwards trend line, you have the convergence of the 200 and 100 period moving average. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. There's a lot of pent up energy in the transportation department, just like how there's a lot of pent up stuff that's happening in our country right now. And sooner or later, it's all going to unfold, and we have to be on guard. Remember this number I talked about in the Qs being this unfinished business, this gap right here from last Friday at 595.97? Well, we know that the spiders went and completed their unfinished business, and this is unfinished business for the Qs as well. But if we take a look at a 5-minute chart, we did not, I repeat, did not complete the unfinished business. We came up a tad bit short. So that certainly is some interesting information that we need to put in our back pocket. As we can see, the Qs already went and tested the vicinity of this breakdown candle high and found resistance off of it at this candle right here. So now, will we do the same the second time around, or will we spike through it, possibly even a spike the high and rip it back down, or are we just going to be stupidly strong and make new all-time highs? This week is certainly going to be very, very important for the market. We're going to continue gathering all the puzzle pieces and the tells of where they want to go. But as we know, we have to be the umpires calling balls and strikes, and we have to take things at face value, and we are in a pretty strong uptrend. Last but not least, we got SMH shaking my head, the semiconductors, smash mouth. We're up $3.70, that's 1.15%. Yesterday, this candle right here, we did happen to make a new high. We didn't finish at the highs, but we did make a new high. And today, we closed at those highs. Not quite on it, but close enough. So obviously, we're in a very strong situation for SMH. Here's some unfinished business at 321.82 that you have to take into consideration. We came up short the first time, so that does make it some unfinished business. Does SMH just want to continue to grind up higher, making new all-time highs? Or do we have some unfinished business to take care of? Not to mention you have the entrance to no man's land right around 312.60. We're a bit far away from that right now, but it's something to just keep in mind if we come down. Remember, anything can happen with the snap of the fingers in the market. We always have to be on guard, especially with a lot of this crazy stuff that's happening all over the world. So with that said, we're going to pull the ripcord for today. You guys know that I appreciate each and every single one of you so very much. You can put that on a sticky note. I'm 𝐼𝐴𝐴𝐿. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as it helps me and the channel out a lot. Don't forget to leave a comment of what you want me to take a look at in the next video. So we're going to pull the ripcord. Thank you all so much for tuning in for another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Stay safe and take care now, folks.